We are live, and today is 24th day of October 2025, and this is in continuation to our discussion from yesterday. I'll walk you through the stuff, putting myself on mute. If you have any questions, put your questions in the chat box and we'll look into it. A lot of smart contracts have been drafted in the last couple of hours, and they are working quite the show. So looking forward to it, and putting myself on mute, and we'll start in a while. If you have any questions, put your question in the comment box. We'll try and address those, and the discussion today would be around the data sets and how the data set itself can be utilized to create the protocols for also the 5G and the others. Of course, we have 5G, 6G, 7G in synchronicity or of the generative technologies, which are part of what we are going to see in coming months and days. And particularly, I'm very excited about the data sets for the DAO, which are decentralized autonomous organizations. I'm part of many. Perhaps we are going to launch our own DAO very soon. I'm still trying to figure out what would be the best alignment as far the DAO is concerned. So putting myself on mute. If you have any questions, put your questions in the comment box, and if you have really good question, we are going to answer. Otherwise, we'll just stick to what the discussion is all about. first we are going to delve into ISO 8385, and then we'll put into different buckets of understanding of the parameters which can be part of ISO 8385, and then accordingly we'll get into the standards for the real-time analysis. Okay, although ISO 8385, it's not a valid ISO international standard, but it is being utilized by a lot of Chinese company for collating the data set under the gamut of ISO 8385. So that is something one needs to look into. Then let's look into this. Okay, now we are going to discuss about how a framework can be developed around understanding if, say for example, there's a trench of fiat currency which is being taken in lieu of collaterals. Here the collateral is the Intel. Now Intel, not the company Intel. This is the intelligence of the protocols, which is a combination of multiple protocols, and these protocols have loads of sub protocols because protocol itself is proprietary in nature, as we are getting it aligned with the ITU standards. One of my papers has been submitted and accepted. It would be published in the month of November, and I'm looking forward to that. Having said that, I'll try and articulate something which I can personally share with everyone, and they can get the smart contracts around the same, particularly from the viewpoint of, say for example, there are multiple parties. Now party 1 is taking some kind of loan which is not a floating loan. So most of the folks don't understand the word floating. I'm not very sure whether it's an Indian word or not, but floating loan, or perhaps any kind of that word, is if party A is taking a loan from party X in lieu of floating loan that is dependent on that the interest rate of the same is dependent on multiple parameters. And when the interest rate is dependent on multiple parameters, the principal amount and plus the interest can increase. I mean, there are situations, and particularly seeing the landscape of the planet right now, and I'm talking about the planet Earth. There are loads of folks who are talking about Mars and the others, and perhaps I'm not of that opinion that we need to get onto another planet altogether in terms of being physically present there. But the understanding right now which we are working is with the real data sets and understanding how the principal amount, whatever the principal amount is, these extra loan amount is static. Static means whatever happens, irrespective of whatever is happening, the interest rate is very low. And when the interest rate is very low, say for example, anywhere between 0.5% to 1%. It doesn't pinches. It doesn't pinches to develop protocols and businesses, and particularly when we are talking about this World Wide Web, where things can be built in a very fast, speedy manner with the utilization of the different modules. I'm not talking about the LLMs here, because all these large language modules or models have been developed keeping in mind certain structure, which may be good for certain operators, but not good at the institutional understanding of the investors. So for the institutional investors, they should avoid utilizing the LLM models. They have to build their own stuff, and they need to do it in silos. That means a lot of folks would be laid off, which is already ongoing, and all these FANG companies and whatnot, those fancy names. Those people would be chucked out, and what is the need of the hour is to onboard individuals, candidates, based on not only, and one thing which should be negated at all cost is, as I talked about earlier also, the schooling, the colleges, and the other, I would say, the basic fancy stuff that has to be negated. What is important here is to look into their historical data set, in terms of not the historical data set of one generation. Honestly speaking, the data set we have right now, we have gone back to the historical data set of almost 200 to 300 years, and then we have identified individuals who are onboarded, and that's a global affair. And like, even we have people on board from countries like San Marino. San Marino is world's smallest republic. So San Marino works in a very different fashion, and the point of contention here is to understand that lending is not fashionable. If there's any kind of foreign lending, it has to be static enough so that the principal amount is able to easily take care of the interest amount, plus whatever is left is leverage for the employees. And ESOPs is going to play a very pivotal role. ESOPs, then the vesting clauses, and particularly candidates who have been true to the companies in whatever respect. Say, for example, somebody has stayed in the company for 10 plus years of their lifespan. I think those are the people the companies also should support, but it's not that you just support. You need to see that they are upskilled enough to execute what the work is being provided in the shortest possible framework with the utilization of the skill sets. So having said that, let's deep dive into some of the applications I wanted to discuss. Right now I'm going to discuss the identification and the SWOT analysis of register generation system. Honestly, I'm not a very big fan of the word engine. I like to use word modules, and I have replaced everything wherever the engine was with the module, because module for me is something which I have deep dived over the years. Modules and sub-modules are the words which actually make a lot of emphasis, and these are neutral words. Neither they are positive, neither negative. So when we are trying to build these protocols, it's always good to utilize word which is neutral, because neutrality is equivalent to zero, and folks need to understand the reality of zero. People who are out of the matrix, who really understand the zero and the ones of the online world. The beauty is just replace the word engine with the word module, and see for your own self with the small scale languages which you are developing based on your proprietary stuff in whatever way you are. That will give you an leverage over the others in short term and in long term, both. Okay, let's talk about this. First of all, let's get into the classification, which is really important right now. Okay, so there are let me see in detail what it's talking about. So people who really understand the neural way of working, so there are different trees, not the particular wisdom tree I'm talking about the science and the tech behind it. So trees like B plus trees, these are basically merging new data entities into the hierarchical index. So this is G06F16/2246, and as I said, you have to look into the equivalent CPCs. You have to look into the US classification. I'm not very happy with the US classification of these things, or the way they have bifurcated everything. But let's just, for the sake of hypothesis, we will take trees, for example, B plus trees, and particularly this is being utilized for structuring of the structured data like relational data. Now in the relationship data set itself, negate the biological data set. When I say negating biological data set is, okay, you will see clan, you will see families, which are big families. You will see loads of, okay, I'm not getting into that data set which is not documented, but what is documented in terms of, say for example, siblings. So when we're talking about relationship data set of the siblings, whether it is twin, without twin, because that data set, because I worked on a data set where we were taking the data set of twins in reality, and we did some equations around it and it didn't work out. So what I did in that particular case is I took the twin data set as 0, point number 1. Point number 2 is, even for the relationship stuff in terms of sibling, so there's something called as first bloodline, and then there is, extended cousins and the like. Just for the sake of simplifying the data set, I have taken everything as 0, because when you take it as 0, the equations become simple. And what is more important is to look into individual's identity, because that is more important rather than, if you were talking about a spectrum of siblings, particularly if somebody is elder or younger and all that nuances, the fortification of the data becomes difficult. So what is simplification is, wherever there is little bit of, I would say, resistance, take it at 0. And when you take these data set as 0, the color coding and everything is simplified, because too much of hassle as the OPDs, it doesn't give good results. So simplify it, work on very few candidates. When you are taking that, not the first 100 customers or first 5 customers, they have to be selected on certain parameters, and do this hypothesis for the way you want to figure it out. So that's my submission here. And then we have, okay, so I talked about this trees, example B trees. Then we have how to extract the rules from the data. So that is G06N5/025. Machine learning is simple, like G06N20/00. I'm not getting into it. Now for the SWOT analysis, what I believe is, from the institutional investor point of view, G06Q10/0635 is important. And let's deep dive into this. What are they trying to do? And one more thing, if you are looking into a database and if you see a document which doesn't have any figures, take it as a sign that this has a lot of integrities, and take it as 1. I mean, that's the simplified version. You don't need to get into the data set, read it and try to prepare hypothesis around it, because understand that publication was done at the first place as a clue for few of the folks to work around the internet and create their own protocols. So take that data, analyze that data, but that data analysis itself has to be 1. So anything which is without figures, you don't even have to read it. Just take it as 1, and how you pictorially able to understand that. If something is interesting, yes, obviously there's no harm getting into the data set and understanding what is being said, because even if there is an applicant and the inventors, there are chances, and the chances are very bright, that that is a falsified data set as far the applicant is concerned, the inventors are concerned, because a lot of money over the years, and particularly I'm talking 2 decades back. So on the timeline, we are in 2025. I'm going back to 2005, because that was the time everything was written as to what has to happen in the year 25 and beyond, and how we can achieve the SDG goals 2030 if it has to be achieved. So if I have to understand in the biggest way, it would be, let's take, there are two forces, or rather let's say there are three forces, or there are three operators in this world right now on the planet Earth. And operators, people understand what the operator word is all about. So one operator consensus is we need to achieve the SDG goals 2030. Another operator is of the opinion we cannot allow them to achieve 2030 because we have our own agenda items which we need to push. And the third is the neutral party. Neutral party itself, I'm not giving any names right now, so that's the easiest way to understand three-party agreement, that one is for, one is against, and one is neutral. So there is no judge, there is no DAO. So this is the simplified framework of anything which can happen in the capitalistic world. That being said, let's look into this, because this is something which has my attention right now. So let's look into this. Okay, so let's take it as a data set of hypothesis, which is to understand the SWOT analysis. If, okay, do I want to be the person who wants to do this? So let me see if I really want to do this right now. Okay, in one hypothesis, I'm the regulator who has a lot of fiat currencies, who has a lot of understanding of the blockchain, stable coins and everything, and I need to give a percentage of that to a third party. Now I need to do due diligence. Now how I'm going to perform the due diligence for that particular institutional investor or the company where I wish to be invested. So okay, so here what we are doing is we are deploying modules and submodules to read about each individual candidate of that institutional investment. And say for example, on record there are 20,000 people in the company, and of course there are few people who are not on panel of the company but associated with the company in different aspects. So the individual analysis of the candidate would be very important when you are trying to raise funds, when you're talking about the stable coins and trying to agree on the consensus of different averse SWOT analysis based on multiple parameters. So basically, for the drilling purpose, what can go wrong with the investment in that company? that is where human intervention has to be there. We talked about HACCP the other day, that is hazard analysis, critical control point. You need to identify those aspects and you need to have those intellectual brain. So intellectual brain is nothing to do with the patent agents and the patent attorneys. Intellectual brain can be anyone who understands the business the way it has to be understood, and that intel is taken into account, and you are mapping it out in terms of SWOT analysis and trying to understand what are the integrities in terms of the quadrants. And just take 4 quadrants. Please don't divide it into further quadrants, because then it makes life difficult as far the understanding is concerned. So one aspect of the hypothesis would be to divide the database into multiple databases, and the multiple databases itself is kind of an SQL, that is structured query language, as to how the individual candidate has been thinking over the years. And particularly internet doesn't spare anyone. Even if something is deleted, it stays at the back end of the admin, and that can be looked upon and understood to understand the psychology behind what was done at any given point of time. And that data set has to be taken and then color coded with the numerical formulation, and just do it on a basis of 0 to 100 and try and score that. I don't want to give any particular scoring methodology. I have proprietary stuff with me. Honestly speaking, I even don't know how to get this forward on the Impula network, because a lot of things are there which has to be proprietary, but a lot we can share so that other folks are able to utilize this, because innovation means that it has to be shared to the public at large. But that doesn't mean that you need to have a patented stuff, then only you are able to move forward, because that way of working was very evident in US. That doesn't work for a country like, I don't want to name the countries, because being proprietary has the advantage of, if you go to the historical data set of the brands which have done well, it is not because of they have granted patent applications. They have done well because they were able to keep the basic data sets very proprietary in nature, which is called as trade secrets. So how you're able to have a business around the SWOT, which includes, here I would say T itself is a threat, but when you replace threat with trade secrets and you are able to develop protocols around it, that is where your advantage would be. So, input. Okay, honestly speaking, people are, if I talk about a country like India and US, we have SEC in US and the others and other countries, then we have MC in India. All those filings, the audit filings and everything, those data sets, I mean, you need to have the recruitment of few folks who just need to go through that data set and understand, not utilizing computation as such, but yes, there is redundancy in terms of when human eye is involved. Because for me also, when I look so many numbers, I have a patience of maybe an hour or so to look into it, but I need to take a break and then give it to the small language models to analyze it and then put my head again. And then this has to be done with multiple people and seen that it's not that human intervention won't be important. Human intervention becomes more important, because when you're doing due diligence is all to do with understanding what went wrong and why something is looking very lucrative. Because if something is looking lucrative, that is where the intervention has to happen, and the Hawkeye approach has to be there to find out why this is so lucrative at the first stage. So if you look with the Hawkeye approach, that is basically you zoom out and then look into the overall landscape of the periphery, you'll be able to see the pain points. And once you know the pain points, you are in a better condition to make your decisions in real time. So we have something called a support vector machine, that is SVM, classic machine learning classifier. I'm not a very big fan of this. I would rather try and understand in a different way. But what I feel is I have some data sets with me. I'll try and collate. As I said, I am in the process of collating the data set in form of a book. But simultaneously, I'm working on two aspects right now. One is the healthcare industry for the dementia and the Alzheimer's, and the second would be the risk assessment in terms of SWOT. Particularly, SWOT is a very well-known word for the finance industry. So I'm just trying to figure out which should go, or I can work on both of them, because when you are working with the ML data and all that stuff, which we know should be proprietary, but at the same point of time, which can be discussed to increase the momentum of the country in terms of the GDP growth. Although GDP has different formulation, right now we are taking as growth, development, and progress. So reiterating the terms in different fashion just to obviate the operators who are trying to pull us down in terms of whatever their intention is, because at the instance of the candidates who are, obviously food is very important aspect of just taking care of the body, but a lot of allergens are also there associated with it. So how that allergen and how to get that focus in the right alignment, that's the question the stakeholders need to answer. I believe I was able to facilitate a little bit of the questions which were very pressing questions, getting a lot of DMs, but the point of contention is I can't be part of all the enterprises of the world, but yes, I'll do my best what I can in whatever capacity and make sure that folks really want to develop something around the protocols they're able to develop and figure out figure out that for themselves, and that makes the world a better place to live in. So that's the mandate, and of course I'm on the side of achieving the SDG 2030. That's something I can vouch for. I'm working towards it and have been working towards it for the last more than 2 decades. As far the patent filing goes, even filed something for Nokia, which was to deal with if somebody can look into the EPO application. That's how the Nokia work was done way back, and even I did the drawings on the visual. So I have a lot of data sets with me, which I would say very progressive about those data sets. At the same point of time, I understand Nokia itself is not being utilized, or they're not utilizing the IP the way it has to, or maybe that's how they want to underplay right now, but that's the reality of the current situation. Thank you for watching this out. Have a great day ahead.